Hello, welcome back to Excel 2016. In this lesson, we are going to look at pivot tables. Pivot tables are used to analyze and arrange data. In this particular data, we have data collected over 2 years. We have the month, the year, and the genre of books sold. And we have the sales staff, the area, and then the total units sold in US dollar, as well as the total units sold in numbers per month. So let's dive into it. To get to the pivot table, you go to the Insert tab and go to the left hand side to the extreme left, and you see pivot table. There's another command there, recommended pivot tables, that can be used as well, but for the moment, or for this lesson, we're going to use the pivot tables command here under the tables command group in the Insert tab. So let's click on pivot tables. Let's cancel this a little bit. Before you click on the pivot tables, make sure your cursor is within the text. Otherwise, it is not going to work. Let me give you an example. Or otherwise, you may have to select the text yourself. It's just easier for you to have your cursor within the text. Let's say I have my cursor outside of the text. I'm going to click on pivot tables, and this is the dialog box that comes up. As you can see, it's asking me the range that I want to select. I can do that. It's a lot of data, but the easier way to do that, is to cancel this, click within the data set, and then click on pivot tables. Now when I look here, it's already selected the range of data that it wants to use, or that I want to use. So Excel is smart enough, as soon as you click on the data itself, for it to recognize and select the range of data that you want to use. The next question is, do you want to place the pivot table in existing worksheet, in this particular worksheet that we're working on, or in a new worksheet? It is always recommended to place the pivot table in a new worksheet. So we're going to go ahead and do that and click OK. Okay, this is a very strange window in Excel. It's strange in the sense that it does not look like anything else in Excel. You see this here, it says pivot table 1. To build a report, choose fields from the pivot table field list. So which field is he talking about? That will be on this side. So let me expand this a little bit so we can see, and then I'm going to also increase this so we can see a little bit. On the right hand side, you have two particular sections. You have the pivot field section, which contains the column headers that we have in the data. Here we have month, year, genre, sales area, and so on. If you go to the pivot table data, you see that we have month, year, genre, sales area, and so on. Okay, so let's go back to the sheet. Okay, so we're back here. So now this first section is where you select the different data points and then input them on the bottom section, which is this quadrant of filters, columns, values, and rows. For the pivot table to work, the values quadrant must contain data, and then one of the rows and column quadrants must also consist of data, must contain data. The filters does not have to, but it helps to be able to select different data points if this is selected. So let me show you what I mean. In this example, let's go back to the table. We have the year of sales. We have 2020 to 2021. Within those years, we have month from January to December, and each month we have total sales of of items sold in US dollars. Now, what is the amount sold in each month of each year? Let's answer that. We can do that by looking at this data, but obviously, as you can see, this is a lot of information. This is why the pivot table is required. So what is the total amount sold each month for each year in a snapshot? So that is what we're going to pivot. So we're going to go back to the pivot table sheet, and then in the sales, in the values quadrant, we're going to put in the total sales. And to do that, we just click and drag, and place the total sales there. And as you can see, it's reflected here. So this is the total sales. Now, for the row section, we are going to impute year. And now, what we have now, we have 2021, the sum total sales is 584,487. And for 2021, I mean, that was for 2020. For 2021, we have 593,496, with the grand total also stipulated here. So it's easy just for us to, just by dragging these two data points into this quadrant, we can easily tell how much our grand total is, how much we sold in 2020, and how much we sold in 2021. All right. So now, what else can we do here? How about we break it down further? How about we drag the month to the rows quadrant? Can we do that? Oh yes, we can. We can have within each quadrant more than one data point. Now, for 2020, as you can see on the left hand side, we not only have the total for the year, we also have the total for each of the month from January to December for 2020 and for 2021. Okay, so now how about we know exactly who sold what in each of the month? How do we do that? We can bring in the sales. That's where we can bring in the sales staff. All right. So just a quick aside there. If I click outside of the data point, my pivot table will disappear. To bring it back, I just have to click on the data, and it goes again. Click out, it goes away. Click on it, and it comes back. All right. All right. So I was saying that we need to know how much each of the staff sold per month for both year. So for both 2020 and 2021. So we're going to drag the sales staff to the column quadrant. My mouse is playing a trick on me. So we're going to drag the sales staff to the column quadrant, and here we go. Now we have all the sales people represented by how much they are selling each month, or they sold each month on the screen. Okay, so this is how to create a pivot table for monthly sales. So we can call it, right now it says sheet 1. We can rename, right click rename, and call it pivot table or pivot book sales. Okay, so this is, here we go. This is what we have now. As you can see, it makes it a lot easier to be able, this is the same data that we have here in the pivot table, but you can see it's a lot of information here, and the pivot book sales just makes it easier for us to quickly look at what is going on and tell who is doing what. For example, in December 2020, Brett, which is the first salesperson here, sold 2,231, but in December 2021 he sold 6,352. So you can be able to compare the data for each salesperson month, year after year or month by month, and you can also compare the data between the staff. For example, in January, you can tell how much bread sold, how much Danny sold, how much Dave sold in one snapshot, and then you can look at how much and what the grand total of sales is on the right hand side and also on the bottom side for both years. All right, so now that we have seen this, how about we try something else? We're going to remove the data points that we have here on the screen. How do we do that? It's simple. We just uncheck the points here, uncheck that, uncheck and uncheck, and our screen is clean again. The other thing that I want to do is to perhaps show you how one other way that we can use this data point, that we can make comparison of this data point. And let's look at the yearly sales, maybe back to rows, and then look at how much was sold in each area. Put that in the values, and as you can see, that does not seem to work well because I put the wrong value field. So let me try putting a column, and there you have it. Okay, so now we have northwest, east, north, and west per year. But you can see there is no data points here. The reason there is no data point here is because there is no value. The value quadrant is not filled. The value quadrant is the meat of pivot. There has to be something here. All right. So what we're going to do is to drag in the units sold in the values quadrant. There you go. So now we have our data point correctly. In 2020, in the east, we sold 120,735. You can see the number for the north and for the west. And for 2021, you can see the numbers as well. All right, so that is how to use the pivot table. I'm going to remove these data points and go back to the previous data points that we used before, which was year in the rows column, month in the rows column, and total sales in the values column, wrong column, total sales in the values column, and then sales staff in the columns quadrant. Okay, so now we are going to do something else. We are going to create a pivot chart, but before we do that, I want you to play with this a little bit and then meet me on the other side.